Hey everybody, it's so nice to see you again. This is actually our 1 year anniversary of doing these networking sessions. Super exciting. We have 3 speakers today. I should probably introduce myself again. I always forget to do that. My name is Sharon Chaden Glass, and I'm an instructional media designer for Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. And we have 3 guest speakers today. Our first speaker is Heidi Barker. Our second speaker is Leah Chang. And our third speaker, she's still on her way. Maybe she got held up somewhere. Her name is Tamika Harris. And the way that this works is I hand over the microphone to each speaker for about 5 minutes, and they kind of share how they moved from education to instructional design. And please, as they're talking, think about whose experience really resonates with you and who you want to go into a breakout room with to ask more questions. Write your questions down so you don't forget them. I will record the speakers and the whole group Q&A, but I will not record the breakout rooms. And I will put the recording on my YouTube channel so people who are not able to be here live can see it later. I think that's it for now. So Heidi, I'm going to hand it over to you so you can unmute yourself and I'll spotlight you.
All right, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Heidi Barker. My education career started in elementary education. I started teaching first grade, and then I also worked with the Talented and Gifted program and teaching. Then I moved on to teaching Title I, reading and math, and doing a pull-out program. My husband is in the military, so I quickly learned that my teaching license had to be changed in every state. So I transitioned out of elementary education basically for that reason and started working with training adults. I worked in several different programs training adults who were teaching children from elementary, pre-K, childcare, after-school programs. And then I worked on a master's degree in education, and it was kind of early for instructional design, but that's the focus that I had, was instructional design. I really thought that working virtually was a lot more transferable with the military spouse lifestyle that I led. And I currently do a contract with Freedom Learning Group for Coursera, and I develop e-learning courses for Coursera. To me, it's not quite instructional design. The program that we use, the LMS, is called Rhyme, and it's not like Captivate or Storyline or your other instructional design tools that you would use. And it's a little limiting, but I use my instructional design skills to develop the courses, write the storyboard, the script, and do recording. And I use things like Audacity to help me with that recording because of the limitations of the editing of the LMS. And I'm always looking for my next adventure in instructional design. And I like to say I'm a lifelong learner. So I'm definitely always looking for the next instructional design experience that I can have and improve my skills.
Love it. Thank you, Heidi. Okay, Leah, I'm gonna look for you in my list of people. There you are.
Here. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Thanks.
All right, it's all yours.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. I am Leah Chang. I am based in Vancouver, British Columbia, so I'm Canadian. I'm not sure if there's any other Canadians here. Yay! Okay, great. I love working with our friends across the border, and I have a really fun story to tell. I hope it'll inspire you, because what I tell my team is that, if I can do this, you can do this too. So I started as a teacher. I used to teach French language, and I lived in Montreal. I lived in France. I came back with a master's in French second language instruction. I had some sort of, some literature background, and I became a teacher in the Vancouver School Board, and I was a teacher for 12 years at high school level. So a couple things I wish that my present self could tell my past self is, hey, you're an introvert. Maybe being in front of teenagers all day is not the best job for you, but I didn't know what else I could do. What I did love about teaching is that I got to design some great programs, units. I had some zany lesson plans. I love to design courses and pitch new courses at the school and at the district level. So I didn't even realize that was called curriculum design back then, but I also really enjoyed the leadership around sort of what we were doing as language teachers. And thanks to that background, I think I had quite a solid approach to sort of designing process and procedural learning, but also building on skills, competencies, and all that good stuff. So being a language instructor gives you a lot of that and a very good base. And I think the biggest thing I can share with this group is it's really hard for educators to sort of define and find the words for those transferable skills. So I've gone through that myself, and some of the things that really helped me were talking to people outside of my industry, job shadowing, doing information interviews, and I took a ton of courses outside of teaching in the education world. I think sometimes as educators, we tend to live in a bit of a bubble, especially at the time. This is a while ago. This is let's say I've been a teacher since 2003, so I wasn't officially until 2016 that I left teaching, and my venue into the instructional design world was actually through marketing and through graphic design, which is, I think, quite common, and it has also positioned me to be a good instructional designer because I'm thinking about things from those lenses. So here's my journey. I left teaching. I realized I was burning out. I started taking some courses in social media, which back in 2010-ish was still pretty new, right? And because I had the French language, I was able to get a job, entry level, but I was working as a digital marketer and doing French social media. But that opened so many doors for me. So yes, I took a huge pay cut. Yes, I was trying out something new. However, I got to learn a whole new industry. I got to practice being in the corporate world and learning what that's like. I realized very quickly that I had a lot to offer, and I got to practice some of those skill sets on different teams. So very quickly, I joined the marketing team. I went from part-time to full-time. I then started working with the Learning Center, which at the time I was like, what's that? Turns out they had a whole corporate training team. So in about 6 to 12 months' time, I was actually leading that team. So educators have a ton of transferable skills. I think the challenge is knowing how to write that up in a resume, and also how to communicate it to a different audience without using all the teacher lingo, right? After that, I got my first taste of learning management systems. And I had no idea what that was before, because when I left teaching in 2013, it wasn't really, we were kind of using Moodle maybe, but so that opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities. And what I realized as a business lead and as sort of a manager is you can make a huge impact in terms of the systems that you design and develop and use as a company or an organization to design learning. So that kind of led me into consulting, and this is what I do now. I have worked at nonprofit healthcare groups. I've worked as a business partner at a government technical safety sort of organization. I went from working from home as an entrepreneur to now I have my own company. I went last year from having one person to help me to now I have a team of about 10 to 20 depending on the project. I love what we do. We get to design such exciting, meaningful content, but I also really enjoy the collaboration that I have with my clients, the SMEs, other people in the industry, and also my peers. I get to work with really cool videographers or production specialists. I may not be the best storyline producer or builder out there, and that's okay because I'm really good at other stuff. So what I do find that educators have is this depth and this savviness of massaging a lot of content into digestible chunks, and that is a huge skill that you can't teach somebody. And somehow my team has, we have quite a few people from the education field, a lot of former secondary instructors like me. But what I realize is that teachers don't always know how much inherent stuff that they're doing behind the scenes. So anyway, if you want to chat about some tips or some tricks that I learned to sort of shift and demonstrate those transferable skills, let me know. And I guess my parting words would be I lean a lot on my peers. So one thing that I do know is I have a lot of strength in some areas, but we can't be good at all things. And watch out for those job postings that ask for it's not even a unicorn. It's like, it's not a Pegasus or a mermaid. It's like all of those magical things combined. Instructional designers, we need a little bit more clarity on what exactly is the role, and you should know that there are some things you can do really well and you don't have to do everything. In fact, that's not always the best thing for any company. So that's my take. You're welcome to check out my blog or website. I have some stories on my blog about like what I've learned through instructional design, but also my team's always expanding. We love to work with other contractors, or if you want to pick my brain on projects, that's open to you. So thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you, Leah. There were a couple things that really resonated with me that you were talking about, that you taught French. I was going to be a French, or I thought I was going to be a French teacher when I went to college, and I made it a whole year. And then the second year I was like, I don't want to do this. I just need to be honest with myself. I want to do something else. And I ended up being a linguistics major. I kept the French major because I was, I felt like, well, I'm good at that, so might as well finish it. And I added a linguistics major. Still didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then I ended up doing TESOL. So that was just the natural progression that I had. The other thing that you mentioned early on when you were talking, I'd like to talk a little bit about this before we go into breakout rooms, because we have a little bit of time. Tamika did reach out to me. She's not going to be able to join us today. You mentioned something about, I didn't realize that, being an introvert was not going to be a great match with teaching teenagers all day long. And I feel you so much on that, because I am an introvert too. I used to be a shy introvert, but I conquered the shyness. But now I'm still an introvert. And at the end of teaching, I would be so drained when I went home, and I would have nothing left to give my husband or my kids. I just like, everyone just leave me alone. I just done everything that I can do. And that was a huge shift when I went to instructional design, is I don't feel drained anymore socially when I go home. I actually don't really go home some days, because I'm usually at home most of the days. But have you felt that, Leah, like that pressure to be the performer all the time kind of goes away a little bit?
Yeah, thank you so much for pointing that out. Yes, to answer quite quickly, I love being in my head. I love engaging with others. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy that, but I want to use my energy tokens very wisely, and I'd rather spend that time talking about ideas with my peers than actually facilitating a session. So this is what tends to happen. A lot of people, when they first sort of come in from either a teaching background or education background, they get pulled in to be the facilitators, because you're used to being in front of people. Oh, you can facilitate anything. And that's kind of a dangerous path to go on. Like, I don't know about you, but other educators that I've, grown up with in my career, like, we had to teach all sorts of things. I remember I had a friend, she had no science background, and she had to teach like Science 9, and sometimes those are challenges that actually work out well. And of course, they're quite hair raising, right? And anxiety creating. So I've shifted my energy to, setting up project frameworks with clients. If you're doing it right, you still feel like your energy is being used, but used more effectively, right? Yeah. I just want to recognize some of the comments in the chat. I'm really lucky to have a bit of digital marketing background. There's so many overlaps. Like, mostly what that taught me is to look at metrics, right? The whole analytics and that kind of thing. Like, marketers, they have that nailed, and they know more about psychology than educators do sometimes. They know how to get that message across. So I would say that's a good area to look into. We can learn a lot from, marketing communications and those kind of effective funnels that they have. Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. The next session that we have like this is September 7th. It's the day after Labor Day, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And I'm working, I think I have all the speakers for it, but I'm going to double check before I announce who's speaking at it. And I am ready to open it up and find out what questions you have. And I can answer, or Leah can answer, or Heidi can answer. We'll answer them best we can. Any questions out there?
I don't have a question, but I wanted to just say a huge thank you, Sharon. It's too bad I didn't have someone like you in the very early days of my transition, but wow, what a great resource.
It would have been great,
so much.
Right? I feel like I've just been Googling. I started this, this whole path of instructional design basically just by Googling everything. Like, what are people talking about? What is this Addy thing? Oh, I've been doing that like forever. It's just called something else. So I feel the same way, Leah. I kind of wish that there was something like this when I was starting out, but thank you. That was a very sweet compliment. Questions out there?
So that I have to say congratulations too, because you said that it's been a year. So
Yeah.
A year of doing these events. I'm sure you've met a lot of people. So I'm really excited. I attended TESOL Elevate last week. And a lot of people know about you and your work, and they told me, like, I don't know if it's like something official, but it sounded like the idea network is something official within TESOL. Like, it sounds like there are a lot of people interested, and all of this, it was your project and your idea. So I love that in a way TESOL is meeting instructional design, because we need
it's actually very unofficial. It's actually very unofficial.
It should be official.
I mean, I made a logo and stuff, but like, I'm honestly, like, here's how I feel about it. I'm not being paid. I don't have sponsors or anything like that. I just do it because it's a nice thing to do. And I think karma's a real thing, and you do nice things for people and nice things happen to you. So
yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
I'll say I agree, and I love what you said, but also I am interested in online marketing. And so, like, I'm sure, like, like I was thinking, there are so many courses, for example, and things that teach instructional design. So like, it wouldn't be too difficult to find a sponsor, somebody who could like help us in a way to reach out to more people and educate. And like, you all have different expertise. Like I went to both rooms, and I'm like, we have David, who is a voice actor. I'm like, that's wonderful, because a lot of times we need voices for projects like that. And then in my other room, I had Jen, who does a lot of communication, and she worked on TV, and she does a lot of production. And there's Natalie, who works on LinkedIn. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I'm trying to really like connect with people and learn from everyone. And we do a lot of things, but it's just crazy because we have many different backgrounds. And so one of the questions we had was like, how much do you need to know about technology, to work as an instructional designer? And so we realized that it really depends on a lot of stuff. Like in my current job, I don't need to know much about technology. It's more about helping educators and teaching them how to teach online in a way. So I'm an instructional design coach, or they called me learning design coach. And so it's just very interesting. So thank you. And, I love that we are coming together once a month. And so maybe this could become something more official. Who knows? We'll see. I don't know if you're interested in doing this more officially, Sharon.
I don't know what that means. I mean, does that mean I don't know.
I don't know what that means either, but
the word official makes me think like, oh, am I signing up for like another commitment? I don't know if you can tell, but I have a problem overcommitting myself to things. But this, like, I can do an hour, but it's not really an hour. It's a little bit more than that, because you're like organizing it and like following up and looking for people to talk. But I don't know, it's been fun. It's not really been work. It's been fun. So
well, thank you.
Other thoughts out there, other questions?
I just put a link in the chat to a Google Doc for those that are or teachers going into instructional design that helped me to rewrite my resume with different terminology of, what teachers are going to instructional design. So some, I guess, as they put it, translations between the two. So if anybody is interested, being able to, like I said, reword their resume, it helped me out a lot to, to translate, rewrite some of the things that I did as a teacher into instructional design terminology.
That's what Steve was asking for, right, Steve? That was your very question earlier.
Yeah, we talked a bit about that in our group too.
Yeah, thank you. This is actually very good, Doc.
I'm just curious because I asked this question in our group, but like I had a really hard time finding references that weren't from, the teaching or the school crowd. And yeah, I'm just curious if anyone else had advice on that. How do you get references for your next career shift that's in an industry that people would recognize or look to?
You mean references as in like professional, like a recommendation letter or something like that? Or what do
Yeah,
you
like for example, when I was just leaving teaching, I only had references of like principals of schools or committees that I'd worked with. I didn't have anyone outside of that profession, right? So it even though I had been working on rewriting my resume, getting other transferable skills and that kind of stuff, it still looked like I didn't have any experience outside of that.
So I have some ideas. Can I share? Yeah, well, the first thing is like, I guess, I don't know if all of you are teachers or were teachers at some point. So like even if you don't think you have the experience, you still do. And so like if I would ask my principal to write a letter for me, I would ask my principal to focus on this specific project that involved technology or, like something that I did, where I shared like something with other educators that I did professional development for other teachers or a project that I did with my students. So I would start there, I guess. And of course, somebody else talked about volunteering. Like that's always a great way to get experience, to get to know people. Me being international, I know that if I volunteer, it's a good thing because then, at some point, like I've seen it happen over and over. Like you start as a volunteer and then you become like a full-time employee. And, that's the way you get on the door, I guess. So that's another idea. And what Kerry said about the verbs and like writing your CV the right way, I think that really matters. Because what I learned recently is that when you apply to big companies, let's say Wikipedia, I applied for Wikipedia. Like a lot of people apply, and so they have software that look at this. They look at the CV, and so like they summarize like after 10 pages of like who I am, then this is the one sentence. And this is just, so nobody really is reading your CVs necessarily. It's just all computer based. And so I'm like, wait a minute, is my CV written the right way? Is it really communicating the right things? And so I think that is very important. And so I guess one of the first things, just to summarize then, is to make sure your CV is good and to try to look for recommendations from people that know you very well, but people that can speak about your skills using technology or whatever.
I want to add on to the question, volunteer, the comment from David, volunteer with a local charity you believe in and you use that as proof of your capabilities. This is something that we talked about out here in the main room. A couple of us were talking about one person's question was, what can I do while I'm at home, being a stay-at-home mom, when I have this gap in my resume? I don't want to lose my skills. She has a master's in instructional design. And I mentioned this Design by Humanity group where you can volunteer to create e-learning materials. You can be an instructional designer, use those skills for nonprofit organizations that are creating educational materials about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know about it because there have been a number of people within these sessions. They were trying to get into e-learning / instructional design. They were teachers and they volunteered for this organization and they didn't get paid for it, but they got the experience of using their skills in creating things, creating objects that could be referenced later on when they went to job interviews. So that's a great way to use your skills in a meaningful way to help you later on down the road. Lane's idea is a great one. If you have, she says, if you have a friend that owns a business, you can offer your services to them too. You will get a reference and a portfolio asset. That's a great idea. Leah, I would also suggest that you can do small trial consulting agreements, even if just a small scope of work for 10 hours with a consultancy is a great way to get started. In other words, don't overlook part-time consulting gigs while you're hunting for long-term employment. I think that's also a great idea. We have just a couple minutes left, and I want to make sure that we end on time. Any final questions before we head out? This has been a great interactive session with lots of stuff going on. I really enjoyed talking. It always goes so fast too. It's like, is that an hour? Okay, then I think that this is a great place to stop and say thank you so very much to Heidi and Leah. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your experience moving from education into instructional design. And I hope to see you all again in September. I will have the registration link posted on LinkedIn in a couple days. And if you want to make sure that you're registered, look for the email that I send with the recording, and we'll get you registered. And I hope to see you the day after Labor Day if you're in the United States. If not in the United States, it's just September 7th. Have a great day, all.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you too.
Bye. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.